This is Terry Sprague with Realtor Talks Magazine, and I'm coming to you from Lake Oswego, Oregon. I'm the owner of the Christie's Real Estate Company in Portland and Seattle, and we're glad to be here today chatting with you. The way I got into real estate was I had another career. I spent 15 years on Wall Street, and then I retired to the Caribbean in year 2000 and moved to an island called Antigua, and became an artist and a sailor. In fact, this artwork you see behind me is artwork that I did in the Caribbean. And I used to sail across the Atlantic Ocean and had a kind of a fairy tale life for 6 years. One day I met my wife on the beach, and I was 45 years old. I'd never been married, but she was the one. So she moved to Antigua with me. She was a school teacher from New York, and we would sail across the Atlantic Ocean and up to Portland, Maine at the end of the year and deliver mega yachts. Was one of my passions. And we came home to visit my family, and my mother was dying. So I thought, I better get home, and it's time for me to re-enter the real world again. And because I had had a business background and an advisory background, working with people in regards to their personal wealth, I was really comfortable with the idea of, what do real estate brokers do? I actually purchased a property, and I thought, what do these guys do? And so I took the time to write a business plan of the type of experience that I would want to receive if I was working with a realtor. And I presented that real estate plan to a major company here in Portland, and they hired me. And it was in 2007 when the market was crashing. And in 2007, at that time, numbers were a lot lower. The main producer was doing $7 million a year, the biggest producer. In my first 9 months in sales, I did 9 million in sales, or 9 million in my first 9 months. And then in my second year, I did 26 million in sales. So while the market was crashing, part of my investment strategy is I'm a contrarian investor. In other words, I always see the adversity as an opportunity. And so I felt when the economy was crashing, what are the solutions that the sellers are looking for? And I positioned myself as a luxury real estate broker. And so my passion was, how do I execute a different form of investment and give an advisory experience that would be similar to what I'd like to receive? And I have a motto in my business. It's PPSD, which stands for people, process, surprise, and delight. And what I mean by that is, you should be surrounded by the right people that create all your collateral and work on the houses and the preparation. And then the process should be nailed down from the beginning to the end and very clear to the seller of a property. And you execute that perfectly. And then in the end, and during the transaction, throughout the transaction, you're always looking for things to surprise and delight the client. And what I mean by that is certain experiences that when they're out having a cup of coffee with their friend and they're talking about their favorite realtor, I want them to have an amazing story about something that we did that surprised and delighted them. And as complicated as real estate becomes, and we see all of these different ways of marketing ourselves, the reality of it is most of my business comes from people that talk about me and talk about their experience. So my passion has been to create a model that I would want if I was in the business of buying or selling a home. I am the ultimate optimist. I have really not, to me, there are very few difficulties in this industry. In fact, I think the difficulties that realtors have are difficulties they create for themselves. This is one of the few businesses that you can get into that there is no barrier to entry. You can have any kind of background and ultimately get a real estate license and assume that it's going to be a business of convenience and flexible schedule. The reality of it is, if you and I worked at any corporation that had quarterly expectations and certain daily commitments and timelines that you would have to perform, you would do that. In real estate, often I think where realtors lose their traction and blame their success on a lack of tools or a lack of opportunities is that they don't have a plan. They don't have a written business plan. They don't look at where they are today, what are their strengths and qualities, and where are they going to position themselves in the market where they can say, I offer unique value. And then there should be basically daily activities that lead to that success that are part of your business plan. And quite frankly, I feel like this is one of the easiest businesses in the world, as long as you execute. And that's what any business comes down to, is we can always have a great idea of a business idea, but it all comes down to execution. So this is a business of being sure that you have a plan and you execute on a regular basis. And quite frankly, if you do it well and you deliver an experience to people, the people will do the work for you. They'll refer the business and your business grows. I compare it to being a gardener. I plant tulip bulbs. I plant a garden. And I think one of the frustrations for realtors is they plant that garden and they see no instant growth. They don't see the seeds under the soil actually germinating and incubating and coming to life. And the reality of it is, if you focus more on planting future opportunities in your own way, your own skill set, that ultimately you start to build a pipeline of business. And once that pipeline goes, it can be abundant. And for me, that pipeline took about a year to build. When I went to work for this major Northwest firm initially, which was a great company, what I did was I looked at all the inventory that the other realtors currently had, because I had made a decision in my business plan, and this is 2007. I made a decision that I would only sell properties of $1 million or more. That's what I would work with. That's what I would be known as an advisor for. And so I looked at all the inventory that the brokers had, and I went around the office and I asked for permission to actually pay for printed advertising of those properties with my contact information. So in other words, can you go to your seller and ask if this guy, Terry Sprague, wants to buy an ad in the newspaper with our property? It's free advertising. And if he picks up a buyer, that would only benefit us. So are we okay with that? And so within the first week of business, in the full page local ad, out of 12 listings, 6 of them had my name on them. I then went around to those brokers and I asked if I could do open houses. So in my first week, I did an open house at a $2.2 million house. And in my first week, I sold that property to an NBA basketball player. So my first transaction was $2.2 million. The most expensive property I have pending right now is $20 million. And that will be the highest valued residential property that I've sold. We've had some, had a commercial building that I sold last year for $15 million. And we recently just closed another $10 million property. Some of these larger properties will never be recorded on the MLS. They'll be never part of my statistics. But yeah, 20 million right now. I work with an international company that sells $100 million properties all the time. My local marketplace, $2 to $3 million is a decent priced home, and $20 million would be comparable to a $100 million home in Beverly Hills. So I consider myself not the biggest forest, but a bonsai tree of quality. Because my average price point is between $2 and $3 million, and I don't list a lot of properties, and I'm not a team. I have 2 women that work with me, and then I have third-party vendors that do my writers, my photographers, my merchandisers, my contractors. They're all third-party for preparation of the house. I show every property myself. I do not own a lockbox. Every property is shown agent accompanied, and I qualify the showing, and I'm there to put on the show at the house when I'm showing the property. Last year I did 100 million in sales. So quite frankly, I never even looked to see how many houses I sold, but I think that probably came down to about 30, 35, 40 homes. Ironically, last year was one of the best years in my career. And when COVID hit, I actually wrote a business plan. And that business plan, I assumed was going to be kind of being shut down for a little while and was going to become relationship based and reinforcing relationships. So I thought, well, if I'm going to be slowed down, I'm going to become part of the solution of COVID and the pandemic. And, we also had a lot of social discussion going on last year. I'm going to become part of the solution. So I immediately engaged in programs to assist small businesses, to assist children's charities, and down to just becoming more neighborly during COVID, of bringing in the garbage can for the person that doesn't want to go outside. But I actually made a video the first day of the lockdown, and I said a couple things. I said, this is a great time for you to reconnect. How many times do we get to slow down? This is a time for us to reconnect with all of our previous clients and give them a call, and don't talk about real estate. Just ask them how they're doing. So I made a goal of calling a certain amount of people every single day, and just connecting. And then I made a goal of outreach, like what can I do in the community to help the people that are going to be impacted. Ironically, within about a week of COVID, I was out there running around with gloves and masks and sanitizer and showing houses 4 or 5 times a day, and I never slowed down. And what happened was, clearly, once people had a moment to assess uh, staying at home, they started to get online and look at trying to live somewhere else or remodel their home. So I think all the remodelers and the realtors thought they'd be out of business, but we had our busiest year. And here in Oregon, we had a lot going on. We had a lot going on in regards to figuring out and having communication, whether it be, different social things coming up, that events that have become highlights of this year's media and thought process, which are all good. There's been a lot of great discussion about the environment, a lot of great discussion about social injustice. In the meanwhile, this wasn't new to me. I grew up in a very humble 1,500 square foot house with 6 kids in a very humble neighborhood. And so I have always been a contributor to children at risk charities, and always been a volunteer. So the idea of social change has never been new to me. I've always been proactive in that space, but I just stepped it up during COVID. And we had forest fires here in the Northwest. There were time periods that I was driving in my Tesla with the HEPA filter on, and the skies were golden with smoke, and I was coming back from putting together a $3 million deal. And sometimes I stopped and thought, how am I doing this? I mean, I am selling a boat in the eye of the hurricane out in the ocean, and all of this chaos is going on around me. But somehow I am, for my clients right now, I'm the voice of reason. I'm the voice of solutions, and had the best year of my career so far. Now this year, ironically, because I was working literally 7 days a week, 12 hours a day last year, at the beginning of the year, I thought, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to take a little bit of break. I don't need to do $100 million in production. That 100 million, by the way, that's mine. So, run the numbers at 2.5%, 3% commission. That's $2.5–3 million in revenue income for myself. And of course, I have my expenses and I have the people that work for me, but I had a pretty good net last year. This year, I thought, well, I want to spend more time with my family. I'm going to slow down. But the opposite has occurred for me this year. I've been busier than ever. Part of that is a combination of those tulip bulbs that I planted, that garden that I've been planting over the years, the surprise and the delight stories have been paying off for me in personal reputation and personal branding and our company's reputation. So one of the problems brokers have right now is inventory. My inventory has been abundant. I get a call once a day for somebody asking me to list their home, and I've been selective and only listing. I'm actually listing higher and higher price homes, and then I have a small brokerage firm with about 10 other brokers that don't reflect my personal production that I've been referring business to. And I have a couple projects that I'm working on. I took on 2 condominium complexes this year that we're going to do average price point around 1.8 million, 15 units a building. And I've found two very strong women brokers in my office that are taking on that task. So I've been trying to delegate off some of the abundance to the people around me this year. But this year, I haven't even paid really attention to where I'm at, but I think I'm probably, sold and pending for the first 6 months at around 70, $80 million. Probably, I don't know, 20 homes. So I think this year, might wind up, unless I can find a good excuse to kind of disengage. And my goal is to, I've been watching, I have two young daughters. So we watched the ABBA movie the other day, or what is it? Not ABBA, but the one that ABBA sings all the songs in, that's filmed in Croatia, uh, Mamma Mia. I want to go rent the Mamma Mia island for like a month and leave. And so I'm kind of dangling that idea that I'm going to get to do that sometime this year, and just I'm ready for a nice break. Because I didn't get married till late, I have I lived and have lived a very, very enjoyable, off the scales life of, I've enjoyed a lot of things. I've traveled all over the world. I've lived all over the world. And my opportunity to be a father and a husband right now, I find what people call normal. I find normal fascinating. I find having simple discussions with my 14-year-old daughter about what 14-year-old daughters need to talk about. I find that fascinating, and more complex and more confusing than any business transaction. And so my one thing I would like to do is spend more time with my family. And in fact, I wrote an offer last night on a condo in Maui. I got onto Zillow, and I didn't even research it. I just saw a waterfront condo and called some brokers in Hawaii and said, write an offer and write it for 20, 30 grand above full price. And they said, well, why? And I said, I want it. And I wish that's the kind of buyers I like to work with too, that are committed when they go to write an offer. I don't work with a lot of buyers in the traditional manner. I do a ton of dual agency. In other words, I represent buyer and seller. My marketing, I own the Christie's company, which has a fabulous marketing syndication. I also have the exclusive for Hoyt residents for Oregon. I have the exclusive for Sports Star relocation for Oregon. And I'm with a group called Realm, which is a group of mega brokers with a very unique way of sharing inventory and cooperating worldwide. So I really don't need the RMLS to sell my properties. I have a pretty abundant social media, and I can literally pop a house on a post, and I have a great collateral professionals. In other words, video and photography people that help me put together my own style of social media, which I do my own social media. My wife makes fun of me. My kids make fun of me because all my spelling and grammar is not always perfect. But the good news is it's authentic, and it seems to work for me. And I get a lot of business from social media. Well, there's crazy good and crazy bad. And I think I'll mention a crazy bad because I think it's easy, for instance, if you were to listen to this interview or you were to look at my optics online, to think, gosh, Terry just has a delightful life. But the reality of it is, when you're working with real estate, on every single transaction, you have multiple parties with multiple emotions. You have buyer's remorse, seller's remorse. I think we're full-time counselors. You have repairs, and you have preparation for houses. You have contractors. You have a lot of people in your world. And if you're doing a good job, you're showing gratitude towards all those people in your world so that they support you and they're committed. But you have trials and tribulations. And one of the biggest mistakes I made recently, that I would say has been my biggest faux pas, was sold approximately a $4 million house. I was working with a professional athlete selling his house, and we had, after the agreement to close, a period of time that he was allowed to get his personal property out of that house. And we did not manage that properly. And we did not pay attention to the timelines. And the timelines slipped by, and all this stuff remained in the house. And here are these people that have bought a $4 million house, and they're in it, and there's a bunch of someone else's stuff in that house. And all I can say is when the professionals showed up to move the things out of the house, it didn't go well. And it took a lot of forgiveness, and I had to pull it together, and thank God for my own, the people that work with me. And it took me going down and meeting with the clients and having a real discussion. I really put my relationship at risk. And if it wasn't for the gracefulness of those owners, I think I would have fired me right then. But they showed grace. They gave us opportunity, and we got it handled. But it ended up, costing me, probably around $10,000, which I don't have a problem writing a check for $10,000 to get some extra movers and get some things done. But, part of the most difficult problem is we have a lot of spinning plates. And mostly, if, right now, this year has been an unusual amount of high-end production. I always wonder how people in the normal price range that sell 10, 12 homes a month at a lower price range, I always wonder, how do they manage that? But we have been closing, 10, we've been closing, I don't know how many, but, I think 5 to 10, $2 to $5 million homes a month this year. And for us, that's a lot of plates spinning and a lot of things that can go wrong at any moment. So I think that is the hardest thing and the most difficult thing, is managing the expectations and always delivering and ending that transaction in a positive manner. I think everybody needs mentors. I have a tendency not to have formal mentors. I've never been a good coaching guy. What I do is every morning, I don't have a fancy CRM. I mean, I succeed despite myself, I think, because everybody's so focused on technology. Every morning, I take out a yellow pad of paper and I write a to-do list. And I do that list throughout the day. And the next day, I translate what I didn't get done from that list to the next yellow pad of paper. And, but I am constantly monitoring other people's best practices. And I'm constantly paying attention to ways that we can improve the experience. And I'm quite aware of all the disruptor companies coming into our industry. And the first question I would ask myself, and I would suggest realtors ask themselves, is how would you disrupt your own business? If you wanted to put yourself out of business, how would you do it? What model would you build to put yourself out of business? And I do that with myself. And so I am constantly trying to raise the bar to a level that, quite frankly, I believe I am the disruptor of the disruptors. There are many new business models out there that are offering different strategies of how to sell your real estate and how to see your real estate. They cannot compete with me. Now, can they compete on a commoditized basis? Sure. But if you truly engage and understand the experience that I'm going to deliver, there's no way that extra savings of a presumed savings of 1% to 2% on your commissions is ever going to net you more money than working with myself. And I'm confident of that because I've raised the bar so high in regards to what I deliver compared to what my competition can deliver. You cannot build an algorithm for what we deliver. You cannot build an online presence with better SEO than the human experience we deliver and the transactional experience and the negotiation experience we deliver. I believe that. And so I challenge myself every day as my own mentor and look at other people's best practices. And I try to emulate the best practices of other people. But I'm not a good guy to get coaching. I don't, it would be hard for me to sit down with somebody for an hour and have me write out a storyboard of my life and put some pictures on what I want to become. I actually want for nothing. I don't have to work anymore. I still invest in I angel fund companies, and but I love delivering in the high end an experience and building that reputation. I'm going to probably do it for another 7 years, and then once my kids graduate from high school, maybe that condo in Maui will be where I end up. I don't know. Have a business plan. So what I'm always surprised, I've had brokers, I get about 2 or 3 brokers a week that call me that are interested in knowing what I do or possibly coming to work with me personally. I am a boutique company and I will never scale. I'm not a team guy, and there won't be hundreds of brokers working at this firm. I just, when you go into Tiffany's, it's a smaller store, they do something very defined and they deliver a particular experience, and they sell a diamond in a prettier box than the mall store. I'm always going to remain a very high level experience. What I'm always surprised though is when I love mentoring other brokers, and in fact, none of my secrets are trade secrets. I will gratefully share all of my secret sauce with any broker any day. In fact, I publicly say, if you want to repost my listings right off of your website onto your social media without tagging me, I don't have a problem with that. If you become successful off my listings, great. My world's abundant. I'm going to have plenty of business. I want our real estate community to be successful. I know that there are other disruptor type models that are suggesting that the personal experience and the personal broker is not important. I don't agree with that. I think you need boots on the ground in real estate. If I was a new broker, I would write out a plan. And what I mentioned by saying that people don't, that I've had people come in and interview with me that have master's degrees. Now, I have to tell you, quite frankly, I dropped out of high school at 16. I remember I told you I had a humble life. I dropped out of school at 16. I lived in a garage. My only source of heat was a waterbed. And I got up at 5 a.m. and went to work at a construction company at 16. And I pulled hides at a meatpacking company on the weekends. But I worked hard, and I worked the quality of delivery and experience. I am surprised that people that come into this business that have incredible educations. First of all, I'm like, why would you even get into real estate if you can go to work for some great corporation and get stock options? And mostly the new generations right now, I'm like mystified. Anybody can do this business. But if you're going to do it, why not? Why wouldn't you be the best at it? Why wouldn't you be the best at whatever you do? Why wouldn't you be? Or maybe that doesn't bring you satisfaction. Maybe you should just go work at a factory and put in widgets every day. But if you're an entrepreneurial style person and you're self-motivated, when you work at a real estate company, it doesn't matter what brand you work at, you're your own company. So if you were starting an ice cream shop, wouldn't you take the time to find out how many refrigerators you need, how much money you make off each scoop, how many ice cream scoops do you need to sell per day to pay for your lease? Wouldn't you take the time to do that? I'm surprised that most people go into real estate, and I think most real estate companies just throw mud against the wall. They'll bring you in, they'll run you through their gambit, and if you succeed, you succeed. If they don't, they don't. But I don't think most people put together a business plan and say, here's where I'm at. This is the kind of real estate I'm going to do. I've evaluated my own personal strengths, and so therefore I'm going to market to these people that will appreciate those personal strengths. And this is the amount of activities I'm going to do per day. And those activities will lead to these activities. And I'll get a pipeline going. And this is the business that I'm going to run. I'm surprised that most realtors don't have a business plan. So the number one thing I would say is, before you go into real estate, you may not receive a paycheck for 3 to 6 months. So how are you going to start your company? If you were starting that ice cream shop, you would save the amount of money you need for your refrigerators, your first 6 months lease, the ice cream, the ingredients to make the ice cream, the scoops, the cones, the people, the aprons. You would break it down and you would decide how much do I need to save before I go into this business? How many people go into real estate with nothing? And then they wonder why 6 months later they're not doing well. if you're going to come into this business, you should be able to immediately execute a marketing plan that makes you look like you've been in this business forever. That your marketing, the day that people start to go, who are you? And they take the time to Google you and form their own opinion of who you are, that profile of who you are needs to be there. If you're going to suggest that you're a luxury real estate broker, or you work on ranch homes, or you work on modern homes, or you work on flip homes, or whatever your thing is, if someone goes to Google you, they better find the content that supports that story. That costs money, and that you need advisors. There are people in the industry that can help you formulate that plan. And so that's what I see is a lot of people that just say to me, when I ask them, why do you want to go into real estate? I love homes. I love the flexibility of it. I always crack up when I call a broker's phone and it says, I get back with you within 24 hours. I answer my phone immediately. I call back within a couple minutes. I don't care how busy I am. I don't care what time it is. I close so many deals that what people don't understand about luxury homes, lenders are always asking me, how do I become your lender? I can pre-approve people for you. People that buy luxury homes don't get pre-approvals. If you're buying a $5-6 million home, you don't need that home. It's a want. People that buy a $5-6 million home they are more spontaneous than you and I buying a pack of gum or a People magazine at a point of purchase checkout at a grocery store. Most of the homes that I sell that are $3 to $5 million, those people decided that day because they just liked it. It's like someone who accidentally walks into a Ferrari or a Bugatti dealership and thinks, or a McLaren shop, and they've never thought about buying one of those, but they get in it and all of a sudden they feel the acceleration and they say, I got to have this. How do I do it? That's how luxury home buyers are. They come into a space and they go, you know what? I've never thought about having this, but I want it. That $3.5-4 million house that I sold that we talked about my faux pas on, they literally just stopped by and I said, well, if you're coming by, bring a bottle of wine and check it out. It was a social visit. Mm-hmm. Halfway through the bottle of wine, the wife turned to me and said, it's my husband's birthday tomorrow. I'm going to buy this house for him. And I said, okay. And I did a FaceTime with the seller and said, hey, they'll pay you full price. This is the closing date. What do you think? He said, I like it. I said, I'll write it up. That's how spontaneous it was. But new brokers, have a plan. Don't waste your time. Your time as a human being, your time on earth, and the time that you have from the moment you start a career to the time you retire is so valuable. And who you become early on in your career and the reputation, whether you become a realtor, anything, if you go to work for Home Depot and you have to sweep floors in the beginning, invent a broom that gets under the cracks, get noticed by management, move up quick, be the best at everything you do. Whether you are a stay-at-home mom, that's a lot of responsibility. Stay-at-home moms are pretty organized. They know what time the kids got to be at school, what time they got to show up for the volunteer event, what time they got to deliver the cupcakes, what time they got to get home, take care of the house, feed the dog, do the laundry. I mean, they're organized, and those are hard jobs. Whatever you do in life, you have a finite amount of time. Why not organize that time and be sure that you look back and go as productive? And I'm not talking about being a workaholic. I'm just talking about, look at anybody in any professional athlete. They don't become a professional athlete by not planning. Think of the years of practice that goes into becoming the NBA player. Now, I've been fortunate. There's 14,000 realtors in my RMLS. I am in the top couple people in the state in the high end. Out of 14,000, it took me a year to do that. It didn't happen because I didn't have a plan. It happened on purpose. I hope you enjoyed the interview. This was Terry Sprague from Christie's out in Lake Oswego, Oregon. Hope you enjoyed Realtor Talk Magazine. Okay, I gotta go show a $7 million house right now.